Hello, good evening and welcome to Prime Business with me, Beverly Broom. Straight to our stories. And Ghana's economy grew by 3.2% to the second quarter of this year, but 0.1% lower than the revised growth in the first quarter. According to figures from the Ghana Statistical Service, the services sector recorded the highest growth rate of 6.3%, followed by the agriculture sector with an expansion of 6.0%. Industry, however, contracted by negative 1.9%. Here's government statistician Professor Samuel Kobnei-Nim.
Information and communication, fashion, health, livestock, crops, public administration, defense and social security, transport and storage were the main drivers of GDP growth for the second quarter of 2023. The information and communication, fishing and health, as well as social work were the main subsectors with more than 10% expansion in quarter 2 of 2023 with 2.61%, 12.2% and 11% respectively.
From a contribution perspective, given that the economy grew by 3.2% for the second quarter of 2023, this growth rate was largely led by a contribution of 1.42 percentage point for information and communication, followed by crops and cocoa 0.97, mining and quarrying 0.48, and the last of the 5 subsectors that contributed to the 3.2 growth rate that we recorded for the second quarter of 2023 were health and transport and storage, which contributed 0.39 and 0.3 percentage points to the 3.2 growth rate that we recorded for the second quarter of 2023.
The agriculture sector expanded by 1.3% in the second quarter of 2023. The growth of crops and cocoa subsector reduced by 0.7 percentage points, growing at 1.3% compared to 2.0% in the first quarter. The service sector, information and communication subsector grew from 4.7% in the first quarter of 2023 to 5.6% in the second quarter of 2023.
Net indirect taxes, which is the difference between indirect taxes and subsidies, amounted to 13.9 billion for the second quarter of 2023. From a seasonally adjusted point of view, the second quarter of 2023 recorded a value of 45.7 billion for the second quarter of 2023. From a trend perspective, this is the second consecutive time that we've seen a slowdown in the quarter-on-quarter GDP in the last 3 quarters, peaking at 1.0 for the third quarter of 2022, slowing down to 0.8 for the first quarter of 2023, and further slowing down to 0.7 for the second quarter of 2023.
Health recorded a marginal decline, growing at 2.9% in the second quarter of 2023 from growth of 3.0% in the first quarter of 2023. For Joy Business, James Ishen.
Meanwhile, economist Dr. Patrick Asuming said the 3.2% expansion of the economy, as revealed by the Ghana Statistical Service, does not reflect the weakness in the economy. Here's why.
Overall number 3.2, you might think is impressive, but I think when you begin to unpack it, you realize that there are still significant weaknesses in the economy. This doesn't in any way, the headline number doesn't tell the true picture of how the economy is doing. We have to understand that the first thing to note is that the first quarter growth itself has also been revised downwards. So if you check the number, I think it's been revised from 4.2 to about 3.3, which shows that the economy didn't do well in the first quarter as we previously thought. And, you know, ordinarily, if we were not in the IMF program, you would have said, well, 3.2%, given how the economy performed and the low base we are coming from, 3.2% is usually not great. But I think the headline number, like I said, doesn't really tell the full picture of the weaknesses that are in the economy.
Let's talk about the trouble this time around. Industry sector, a contraction of negative 1.9%. What could be accounting for this, and what happened to our industrialization drive agenda over the period?
Yeah, I think this is where all our problems are coming from. I think You see the agric also did well, but the industries, in particular construction, the construction subsector saw a substantial contraction of well over 11% or so.
Yeah.
And these are the sectors that suffers the most when the business environment turns sour. When the business environment is terrible, the construction sector shouldn't surprise us. We know the problems that construction in the economy as a whole, both road and housing, have seen because of difficulties that we've had with the IMF program and other things. So that part doesn't surprise me, but I think it also tells you that we have a lot of problems. It doesn't matter what the headline number is, because if you look at the industry subsector, except one, all of them contracted. Manufacturing also contracted. So I think the real sector is still facing some significant challenges.
Now, Greater Accra Regional Chairman of the Association of Ghana Industries, Chonam Akpelo, on his part, says government must take urgent steps to create an enabling environment for the growth of local industries to discourage importation. He spoke earlier on Business Live.
Realize that from the past decade, there has been an excessive liberalization of our economy. What it means is that a lot more of the things that we could easily produce locally are being imported. And they are imported and are being sold in our markets very cheap. What it means is that local industrialization struggle to survive because the local producers are unable to compete in terms of price. And as a result, most of our local industries have been struggling. Some of the key factors that are responsible for this includes capital, cost of capital. As we've said several number of times, Ghana still remains among the countries that borrows in excess of over 25% per annum. And this in itself is a serious issue, because if you borrow at 25%, you're naturally unable to make profit, because you have to use your capital to continue to service the debts that you borrowed. And also compared to that is the fact that access to capital itself is difficult. If you go to most of the banks these days, I'm told, focus on using their money to buy treasury bills, because you're better off buying treasury bills than to lend the money to industrialists. Government itself is very committed. In fact, we have had several deliberations where they have great documents. They have the National Industrialization Transformation Agenda and all of that. Great documents, great ideas. But it is one thing to really formulate the policies. It is another thing ensuring that they are implemented to achieve the results. It is not enough. What government is doing is not enough to cushion industry. We really need to see more. We need to see a situation where industry pay less the electricity bill and water bill, not household. It is time we see industry borrow money at 10%, 8%, as you get in Ethiopia or South Africa.
Moving on, the Economist Intelligence Unit has revised its projected depreciation of the cedi to dollar in 2023 to about 23% from the earlier 30%. According to its 2023 updated African Outlook report, this will place the local currency as the third weakest in Africa this year.
According to a UK-based firm, the cedi will depreciate lower than the 44% recorded against the American greenback in 2023. Presently, the cedi has declined in value by a little above 22% to the world's most important currency. This means that between now and the end of the year, the depreciation of the local currency to the dollar will be very marginal. The EIU reiterated that most African currencies lost substantial value against the US dollar during 2022, and it expects exchange rate weakness to continue in 2023, albeit to a lesser degree. Sudan and Zimbabwe, which will be ranked first and second West African currencies, will be among the weakest in the world in 2023. Meanwhile, Zambia kwacha will become the best performing currency in Africa this year, with a slight appreciation against the dollar.
Now, the Ghana Revenue Authority has charged businesses to ensure full compliance of the tax laws to avoid any harassment from its enforcement team. This follows an allegation of harassment leveled against the authority by the Ghana Union of Traders Association, GUTA. Assistant Commissioner Joseph Anan, who led the enforcement team to close down and arrest some businesses in the Ghana East area, hinted that the GRA will not spare any business that fails to honor their tax obligations.
Total tax compliance, because the tax is not limited to VAT. That's CIT, PAYE, PIT, excise, tax stamp. We are looking at all taxes that are applicable to a particular taxpayer that we visit. So we are not limiting our search to only VAT. That is why when we come to an area, we look around and see taxpayers who qualify to register for one tax type or the other. And I'm telling the public that that is how we are going to approach our quest to increase our collection. That is a tax collection in this country. So it is not only VAT that you must comply with, but you must comply with all tax types. And we are going to go into our system when we come to you to look at all other tax types that are applicable to your business, to know whether you are compliant. And those that we have already visited, we are coming back to you to know whether after our visit, you are doing the right thing. And please, if we come and you are not doing the right thing, then you should know that when you come to our office, we are not going to smile with you. Yes.
Okay, Mr. Anan, GUTA is raising concerns. They said some of their members, you're harassing them. Like today, you entered the shop, you said they are not paying tax and all that. How do you respond to this?
Yes, when we come to your shop, it's not that we say you are not paying tax. The reality is that you are not paying. And if you call that harassment, I don't know what to say. Because ours is to the tax laws. And that's what we are paid to do. We are paid from the taxes that you pay. We return part of it to pay ourselves. So will you be happy to pay us and just sit in our offices? I don't think that is the way to go. You pay us to work, and that we shall do. So it's not about harassment. It's about whether you are paying your taxes. If you are paying your taxes, definitely, then there will be nothing like harassment. We are doing our job. And if you call that as harassment, then I don't know what to say. Yes.
Meanwhile, GUTA has vowed to resist any form of attempt by the GRA to harass their members under the guise of under-declaration of goods. President of GUTA, Dr. Joseph Obeng, made this known when he addressed the media.
The 12% tax contribution from Ashanti commensurate with the business activities in that region, as most of the corporate entities with branches in Ashanti and other regions pay their taxes in the national capital, Accra, as well as payment of duties. Furthermore, I repeat, the 12% tax contribution from Ashanti commensurate with the business activities in that region, as most of the corporate entities with branches in Ashanti and other regions pay their taxes in the national capital, Accra, as well as payment of import duty. What we want the GRA to know is that GUTA has no problem at all if GRA does its due diligences at the port and collect the legitimate tax due it before the cargoes are released. I want to repeat here that what we want the GRA to know is that GUTA has no problem at all if GRA does its due diligences at the port and collect the legitimate tax due it before the cargoes are released. However, we will no longer tolerate any such act of intercepting our cargoes after leaving the port. If anything at all, the externalities of COVID-19 pandemic and geopolitics have affected the business community more, and we can no longer entertain any abuse of authority from any quarter in carrying out our legitimate businesses. As if that is not enough, GRA also goes further to frustrate members of the business community, especially traders, by sending what they call invigilators to sit in our shops and monitor our sales as if we are in a police state, which perceives business operators as criminals.
Now, the Director General of the Internal Audit Agency, Dr. Eric Oduro-Osai, is calling for a public and private sector partnership to enable businesses to integrate sustainability principles in their operations. According to him, government needs to step up its efforts to collaborate with professional and accounting bodies. He spoke to Joy Business at a forum organized by the Association of Internal Certified Professional Accountants and the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants.
Association of International Certified Professional Accountants and the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants organized the forum on the impact and implications of ESG principles on organizations. According to the Director General of the Internal Audit Agency, Dr. Eric Oduro-Osai, government needs to partner the private sector and improve the adoption of environmental, social, and governance principles.
I think there is a lot more that the public sector or the government sector needs to do, because issues of environmental and social governance borders on national laws and national policies. Like one of the panelists was saying, if a state institution is slow in meeting their requests, it does not help them to properly report on sustainable business doing. So I think that there should be a very good partnership between the private sector and the public sector, except that the government sector has a lot more work to do to be able to allow the private sector to integrate sustainability principles in their business processes. Most importantly, when these principles inure to the benefit of Ghanaians. So I'm calling on the government sector to step up its effort at collaborating with the private sector, especially with professional institutions, with accountancy bodies, so that they will be able to put in place the necessary legislative framework.
Regional African Vice President of the Association of International Certified Professional Accountants, Tariro Mutizwa, also noted that the ESG principles will play a critical role in the sustainability of the planet.
I think the most important thing why we need to do it is the sustainability of our planet, the sustainability of the human race. That's the starting point. And how we do it is through these ESG programs. So it's very important. And businesses are a major part of the planet and the human race. So it becomes very important for them to take a part in making sure that this happens. The sustainability agenda is pushed forward.
Organizations were urged to take prudent steps in understanding the environmental, social, and government principles and integrate them in their operations.
Now, Pan-African Technology Solutions provider CWG Ghana has stated that it will continue to invest in the country to help drive the government's agenda of expanding technology and digitalization. The company, which provides technology solutions to communication firms and financial institutions, among others, has maintained that leveling technology could help create jobs for thousands of Ghanaians. The following report has more.
The company, which began operations in Ghana 20 years ago, has been able to increase its reach across various sectors of Ghana's economy. Focusing on Pan-African system solutions, CWG maintains that Africans can develop unique technologies to solve challenges facing the continent. Speaking at the company's 20th anniversary launch in Accra, Managing Director of CWG Ghana, Harriet Atram Yati, said the company will continue to explore new markets.
Without directly mentioning names because of corporate governance, we may have to seek permission before we mention customers' names. But we have quite a number of customers, major telecoms in Ghana, some of the big banks in Ghana. We have supported them on their IT infrastructure, on enterprise solutions, applications, among others. And all these years we have been, we've had some customers as old as inception of CWG Ghana in 2003. We had a major bank as one of our first customers, and they are still with us today. One of the telcos that we also acquired 3 years after incorporation is still a customer to CWG, and this is a testament that CWG indeed gives peace of mind.
On his part, the chairman, CWG Ghana, Austin Kwesi Okere, said it is important to create a competitive environment in the tech space to allow African tech companies to expand beyond their home countries.
Our anchor customer, MTN, with whom we're doing a global annual revenue of $35 million, had selected Ghana as our West African hub. Obviously, they must have done very serious due diligence. So we latched on to that due diligence and followed them, being our biggest customer, by establishing CWG Ghana as our West Africa hub as well.
That's how we wrap up tonight. For more business news, you can log on to myjoyonline.com/business. I am Beverly Broom. Sports is next with Razak Musbah. Please stay.